My name's Nick. I study energy and land management, which is a very specific degree, and it's basically the process of buying and renting minerals for natural resource extraction. Yeah, I moved here for the college. Like I said, I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm from like one of the many big, vast suburbs of Philadelphia, but it's so far away. I'm closer to northern Delaware than I am to Philadelphia. My family spent, I think, 3 or 4 years in Maryland, and before that, they were in Ohio. Oh, that was my mom's work that moved us to those different places. She's a chemist. She's currently employed at which is a company that makes a lot of different things. So that they recently were split off of major chemical company. For some reason, didn't want to hold on to a whole bunch of their different chemicals, and so they made a separate company to hold those processes and like be that section of the company. And so my mom works for that company, and she's a part of the new brand off. So yeah, so she moved us there in 2002, and she worked in Maryland before that, and then Ohio before that. My dad, he's a stay-at-home dad. He's great, but he stays at home. He's kind of been that way for a little while. Yeah, it was a little more that he didn't find work whenever he got to where we moved. He did work for about a year as a letter carrier for like the United States Postal Service, but that only lasted for like 8 or 9 months or so until he kind of. I feel like he's kind of quit trying at this moment, but after 15 years, it's pretty easy. He's already 60, so he's kind of resigned to it. Particularly the town was really miserable. Like I really, really hated the town that I grew up in. Not for any like particular reasons. I didn't dislike any of the people or any of the scenery or anything, but everything cost a lot. Like we're in a very well-to-do suburb. Everyone's white, and everyone has a Mercedes, and it's Targets everywhere, and there's no character to anything. It's just very bland, and it's expensive for no reason, and it's full of a lot of boring things and things that I didn't really particularly care for. I kind of really wanted to get away whenever I graduated high school, and I didn't for a whole year, but right now I'm actually trying to figure out how to get even further. I'm trying to move to Texas, Houston. I really want to go to Houston for a couple of reasons. It's got a lot of jobs in my field of study. There's a lot of oil and natural gas and natural resources that are based out of Texas in general. So Houston and Austin are both great cities for people in the natural gas and oil field, but particularly Houston is bigger spatially, and it has a lower cost of living than Austin. Austin's thought to be more of a cultural hub. It's like a lot more left-leaning, and so it's got like higher property value for no real particular reason. It just costs more to live there. So in Houston, it's cheaper to live. It's about as expensive as like a little less than Pittsburgh to live in Houston, which it's better than New York City is like double triple that. It's cheap. It's a city, and it's far away. It's somewhere that I've never been before, and there's a whole bunch of people that I've never experienced, and I feel like I'm not gonna have too many opportunities in my life to drop everything that I'm doing and go experience something totally different. And graduating college is one of the few times that I'm gonna have that I can do that. Like if I'm starting a new job, I could choose to start a new job here, or I could choose to pay $1,000 to move and drop myself somewhere totally different and have a totally fresh set of people and meet new people every day. If I stayed here, I wouldn't meet new people every day. I would continue hanging out with the same people that I know already. I feel like moves like that, like whenever I came to college, I met all these people all at once, and it was great. It was wonderful. It was euphoric. But it's kind of dying out now that I've been here for so long. I'm trying to just go somewhere else. I didn't apply to college. Like I just straight up, I just didn't apply. I didn't even apply to it. For a few reasons. One of the big ones was that I was really not committed to high school as a concept. I thought it was really stupid, and I didn't get the best grades in high school. I was like reasonably smart, reasonably okay at all the stuff that I did. I was in a couple of AP classes and all that, but I never really got anything above like a C. And so I'd never really thought that college was something that I wanted to do until I got a job for a year, and then I was like, man, this sucks. Like I'm gonna I'm gonna go to college and like actually try to learn something and try to do something. I worked as the official title was a mechanical assembler, but really what that is it's just a line worker for a like a factory of sorts. So the factory that I worked at made electronic devices that were refrigerant analyzers. So they made devices that used like IR sensors to tell you the chemical compound that you give it. Like you give it a sample of a gas, and it tells you what the gas is. So really, all that I did there was I soldered for a little bit, and then I ended up moving into working in the gaseous chemicals lab for a bit. I was the only person in the gaseous chemicals lab, lab of one, but it was a neat job. It was fun, but the idea of being like, oh well, $15 an hour, I'm doing pretty well out of high school. That's about as far as you go without a degree. Is like, at least in something. In hindsight, I really kind of wish I would have done something more technical with my life rather than going to college. I wish I had gone to like some kind of trade school and learned something a little more intrinsically valuable than my degree. Like I feel like degrees from institutions like a university, they only hold merit if someone is willing to give you money for that. Like there's not too many degrees that like pottery, like pottery as a degree, it has like an intrinsic value, like you make something. But most degrees at universities, you don't really like make anything. You have to be paid to work on something that someone with money once done. I wish I would have gone to school to be like a welder or something, like something that has like value. Well, this particular degree kind of was it was a weird chain of events that led me towards energy and land management. I started out school in mining engineering, and I was just too stupid to do calculus and chemistry. That's totally my fault. I'm sure I could if I like really applied myself, but I really did not want to do calculus or chemistry. Both of those just, nah, I don't want to do that. Especially like, I know that if I'm bad at it in college, I'm gonna have to keep doing it forever. I don't want to like force myself to do something that I'm god awful at and that I really don't want to do. So that's why I kind of dipped out on that. And after that, I went into just regular old business for a semester while I tried to figure out what I actually wanted to do. And I got into environmental protection as a degree, just like politically or whatever. And it seems like a far spread from natural gas, but as I got into environmental protection as a degree path over the course of like 6 or 7 months, I took a whole bunch of classes in it and a whole bunch of GECs along with it, and I really got like into what the major is actually about. And what the major of environmental protection is actually about is like the science behind cleaning up messes, which it feels like so defeatist of like a degree path. Not to insult anybody who's in it. Those messes need to be cleaned. Like it's a thing. Like we need to care about it. But I was like, man, I don't want to spend my life cleaning messes that are avoidable. I would rather just be an ethical person working in an industry that has like potential to be bad and like be a positive force towards like proactively fixing things rather than of course most of it is there's a good variance in the degree path, but most of the work in it is most of the work in the field is like cleaning up messes, like working for the government, like the DEP. Like sure, they make regulations and they enforce them and like they do things that are like proactive, but even that seems like kind of defeatist, like, oh, I gotta go out and check and make sure that the coal companies aren't doing something. I'd rather just work for a natural gas company, be a responsible like citizen of the globe, and do my best to prevent those things from happening. Yeah, it was brand new, and I heard about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds like more interesting to me. That sounds like something that I would be more into doing. Like, there's a lot of classes on ethics and negotiations and like how to deal with people, how to deal with non-technical risks, like risks of people not liking you, because there's a lot of things that the natural gas industry has to deal with, and I thought that was more interesting conceptually than, oh, well, BP spilled something and got to clean it up. Now, it's $1 million project to clean it up, and it's a very worthwhile pursuit to clean it, but I'd rather power homes than clean messes of people that power homes. seems more fruitful. Is that most people in my major and in my field of study are very conservative. They're like, fuck the planet, like just go do it, like whatever at all means all, whatever it costs to get it, because that's like what they want to do. Like a lot of them are very, very right leaning. I'm not particularly. I do believe in natural resource extraction. I believe that it's like a necessary evil that humans need to participate in. Even if you want to turn off all the electricity in this room, you still need plastic to like have things to eat out of. Like there's so many practical reasons why we need natural resources, and I think it's a totally okay and ethical industry if it's done correctly. A lot of people, I guess what I was saying is a lot of people in this field don't have the same perspective that I do. It's kind of the polar opposite of environmental protection, which is odd that like the same university offers like things for both, like literally like how to strip mine, and in a class about why strip mining's bad. It's funny. Energy land management's only started like 2 years ago, so there's only like maybe 80 or so kids in it, but there's also like not really, there's probably about equal demand for both of them, so it kind of keeps both of the majors relatively tiny. Like I don't think either of them are going to get over 200 students anytime soon. Both of them are they kind of have to be tiny because there isn't that many jobs for either of them. There's like very select jobs for them. It's not like a huge industry. Well, I hate to say like markets is a good reason to do anything, but it's not marketable to use coal right now. And I think that it's good that we have the reserves of it, but when you take into account externalities of resources, just coal like does not have as net of a positive on society in the world as natural gas does. Natural gas is a much higher net positive for like both it's a negative towards like the world, maybe, there's carbon that's being released and all that, but like the positive towards people is good, and there's less negatives towards people, whereas coal has a lot of negatives towards people, and also way worse for the environment and way worse for a lot of other things. Like it's just more destructive. There's a lot of if you take into account externalities, it's not as efficient as far as like society goes. Like you can kind of mathematically figure that out. Like with you have to take a lot of classes in agriculture and resource economics in my major, and that's something that we learn a lot about, is like the concepts of externalities and like what other things come into play whenever you if I mine coal and I sell it to my friends, then some third person who didn't even see the transaction has some kind of external they're impacted by it somehow. Like whenever you take those into account, it gives you a different perspective of things. Yeah, I'll go off on that for a second. I'm very passionate about this. People are very quick to dismiss any kind of carbon-based resource, which I understand why you're quick to dismiss it, especially in West Virginia. In West Virginia, they have like a very storied political history of people being abused and the natural resources being abused here. I understand why people are hesitant towards it, but a lot of people, like the knee-jerk liberal gut reaction is to say, well, we can just have wind turbines or solar panels or shit like that. But nobody asks, like, where are the solar panels made? What kind of resources are needed to make solar panels? And the answer is like mercury and lead. Like they're like sweatshops in like China and like other third world countries where they're like mining lead and mercury. Like, and that's a huge negative externality. Like we don't realize that. Yeah. I mean, well, maybe not wind turbines. Wind turbines are just steel, but even so, the wind turbines aren't made in America. They're made in Japan and China and Taiwan and like other places where it's cheaper to have industrial manufacturing like that. And most of them are installed by companies in Texas. So if you're a West Virginian living on a mountain, it's great that you can say, oh, you can get your electricity from a wind turbine, but you can't get a job from a wind turbine. A wind turbine sits there and somebody who owns it makes money off of it, but nobody has an opportunity to even participate in it. So, I mean, I guess there's a lot of externalities with a lot of different resources, like particularly solar panels. Like it's they're unsightly. You have to mine like I think like a pound of mercury and like a pound of lead for a standard door-sized solar panel. I could probably fact check that to find out that I'm wrong about that, but they do have a lot of externalities to them that aren't considered, and it's unfair, I think, personally. Yeah, it's easy to say we could just get everything from wind turbines and solar panels, but for one, it's impossible. There needs to be a base load. Like those are not base load electricities, and you can't make a battery that big because there isn't enough lead on the planet to make batteries big enough to support New York City and Pittsburgh and even there isn't enough lead here to be able to make a battery big enough to make it so that whenever the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, you can still turn your lights on. You can't. It's impossible. Well, it's so expensive, and obviously, like the big externalities from that are like very obvious, and so a lot of you environmentalists are against it because like you remove ecosystems whenever you do that. You like permanently damage like the flow of water. Like it's also like mondo expensive. Like you can't find a company that wants to buy a hydroelectric dam because there's a lot of good economic reasons to not buy a hydroelectric dam. Like the initial cost of investment of a natural gas well might be like $10 million. It sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but it's not like, $1 billion to make a hydroelectric thing. Like it's a lot easier for a company to come up with $10 million and then have an investment that pays off, 15 than it is for them to somehow come up with the governmental reason to come in and because the water flows backwards, the water quits flowing forwards. There's a lot of externalities to it. It can only be done in scopes like the dams that we see around us. Like the dams we see around us they're big in scope. Like you can't do that on small scales. It just can't be done economically, at least. It's something that we should be doing. It's something that is good, but it's not enough to supplement or change the fact that we need coal, oil, gas, natural gas, biodiesel, biofuels. You can do wood's a great biofuel. That's a good alternative energy source that a lot of isn't too widely used, like composite woods and like biofuels and biomass, like that. Those are also like good fuels that exist, but they aren't as frequently talked about as like fucking solar panels and wind turbines, which like that's something that I'm personally like that's at least if we started burning trees to power our homes, then we could have people paid to go out and cut the trees at least. But if I own this mountain and I put a wind turbine up, then all the liberal people down on the bottom of the valley are gonna say, "Oh, look, see, we don't have to mine coal. Look, we got it figured out." But nobody has a job. Like nobody has an opportunity to make any money off of the other than the person who can afford a wind turbine. Like that's great, yeah. So people who can afford wind turbines can make more money. Cool. It's great. That's what we need more of. Well, I was one of those stock standard gifted but not achieving. I was actually like really against the concept of the gifted program growing up. I had a few friends, but I was pretty low on the social spectrum growing up in high school. It's kind of changed since I've been in college. I feel like I had a new start whenever I got to college, and like I bought my own clothes whenever I got to college because I could like afford it and all that. So I mean, I don't know. Growing up wasn't terrible. Like I guess it's easy to give all the downsides of things. Like my parents were nice. I always had food. I always had clothes. It's nothing really like to complain about, and I was never like bullied or harassed, anything terrible. But I mean, it wasn't. I didn't really love it. I didn't really love my childhood. I'm definitely happier now that I'm an adult. I have one younger sister who's 16. She's gonna be 17 in September. But yeah, she's pretty distant from me, so she's alright. She's nice. I mean, we're age-wise, and I mean, of course, like, whenever, I feel like if you have a sibling that's, like, a year apart, and maybe be a little closer, like, emotionally, whatever, 6 years apart, it's like, you kind of, it's a big distance. 6 years, 5 years. Yeah, and also she's a girl, she's into totally different things. Theater, she's into theater, and, like Broadway. She's in her high school musicals, and she's in her, some other local productions of things, like, cinema and all that, which I've never been a huge fan of any kind of cinema. Well, I should say cinema, I mean live performances of things, whatever the word is for that. But I've never been a huge fan of any kind of cinema or like any kind of anything like that. I think that show tunes are like a they don't count as music in my opinion. I don't know. I'm really into music as like a listener. I don't even play any instruments or anything, but I really am like super passionate about art and music. But I consider like show tunes because it's like a panel of like hundreds of writers making it, and it's like a whole big thing. I feel like it loses some of artistic um, the
Integrity?
artistic integrity of like an album or like a movie that's made by someone. I could understand maybe that a little bit more, but I feel like a Broadway show tune has so many people involved that it kind of becomes muddled and clouded. And I don't know. My opinions are very here and there. I care a lot about the music that I listen to, but I also don't think that there's bad music to listen to. I don't think that the music that I listen to is any better or worse than anybody else's. I don't think there is such a thing. Like it's, I think that music is kind of like food, you know. Like if someone uh, likes filet mignon and they also like cotton candy, then that doesn't disqualify either of them. Like if your favorite food is bologna, you could be the world's best food critic and really enjoy fried bologna sandwiches. If that's the way that it is, it's the way that it is. Whatever you enjoy is what you enjoy. It's really dumb that people are concerned about whether or not their music taste is like good, or people, it's also really dumb to me that people believe that there's such a thing as like a good taste in music. It's just silly to me. I'm really all over the place, but the genres that I gravitate the most towards, well, these days it's been like strict techno. Like there's a lot of rules for techno. Like there's like, well, the nomenclature of electronic music has a lot of rules. So like all the different words mean different things, but basically techno always has the same exact beat all the time, no matter what, and it's you know, based around one beat. If you play an entire techno playlist and it's all truly techno, it never stops. Like the beat stays over like even the breaks in the songs. Like it doesn't stop. And the other things that I've been really into recently, I've been into stoner and doom metal and heavier psych music, um, like Bardo Pond has been a band that I've been really into recently. My favorite band of all time is Animal Collective. They're a pretty cool band. They've been my favorite band since like seventh grade. They've been my favorite band. An album that I've been listening to a lot recently. I could tell someone NTHNG. I guess it's supposed to be pronounced nothing, but they have an album that they put out in 2017 that's really good. I tell people normally that because techno is such a there's again like it's so rigid that it's hard to hear bad techno, right? So there's a few YouTube channels that I tell people to look at, and I say whatever they've uploaded today, listen to that. You know, like because they've there's one YouTube channel that I follow called Hate, just all capitals, just Hate, and it's a YouTube channel that it's a promotional techno and promotional techno channel. So they'll whenever music is like being promoted, they'll throw it up directly onto their channel, and it's just straight up. Here's all of the songs from this album, and they upload like 3 or 4 albums a day. Like it's easy to churn out like a whole bunch of techno because it's very easy to make. It's very nuanced, very, you know, like you tell like a good one from a bad one really easily. Like I'm also a huge fan of the artist Boston 168 and Alex Doe, and I could name some artists, but mostly I tell people it's stupid to name artists because like there's so much techno. Like there's like a limitless quantity of techno. There's way more limited than, or way less limited than all the other genres. Because like, you know, if I wanted to, if I were good at producing music, I could produce a techno album every week. Like it's not difficult. You just change it up, make something different, and that's all that techno needs to be. And slightly different. I listen to techno specifically whenever I'm trying to like focus on something. You know, I don't want to listen to things that have extra stuff going on. Whenever I'm like, I only listen to techno. I'm not like a club going person or like a, and techno makes it really easy for that because it's, you know, so consistent and rigid, and you know what you're getting. Like whenever you play a 12-minute techno song, you know it's going to be the same beat for 12 minutes. It's not going to do anything to really wow. You know, if I want to be wowed, I'm going to go to a different genre of music. I don't really care for electronic. Wow electronic doesn't really get it for me. Boy, this is another thing that I'm okay with this being on here, but on the thing, but I was actually suspended my senior year of high school for a day for my opinions on the gifted program. This was in an AT class, so or not an AT class, an AP class, so like the college courses that you take during high school. I had a government class that the teacher for my government class was the coolest person ever. She was really awesome, but she had a project where she said, say some controversial opinion and defend it for like 30 minutes. You know, that was like her thing. She would have one day would be each. She would only teach for like 10 minutes and then be one person defending. Like one guy said that abortion is wrong, and just defended it for 30 minutes, just straight up. He just tried to defend that abortion was wrong, and it was a really cool class. But my opinions on the academically talented program, or whatever it is in your school, like your regional equivalent, like the gifted, the whatever it is, I think that the idea of separating one group from a mass and telling them that they're in any way better or worse is a bad thing, unless it is an absolute necessity. I think that that is something that should be avoided in like all societies. And well, the reason why I got suspended was because I made these like flyers that said like that said don't join the brown shirts, and like it was like had like weird Nazi like kind of images on it saying like that the academically talented program breeds assholes. Like it breeds people who think that they're better. Like again, no slight to anybody if you know anybody who's done it or been through it or whatever, but the whole concept of to me of like you have these kids who have to sit and lunch in the lunchroom like with all the other fucking idiots, you know, like they have to go to lunch and then and stay in their dumb shit track. They gotta stay there, like, and then we'll take these ones that we've arbitrarily picked out and so that they're smarter based upon how the fuck do you know a second grader is smarter than another second grader? You're in the second grade, like how the hell do you know? Like it's just made up, like, and the also the fact that it's not that's not like a test to get into it. You have to be recommended to take a test, and like 95% of the people who take the test are granted into it. It's like, wow, it's almost as though almost everyone could pass the test, and you're just arbitrarily picking who you like. That's just telling people that they're better than anyone else is just something that I think that all societies and groups of people should avoid unless there's like a good reason. I guess what my problem is like I don't have a problem with the fact that in the American high school system you take a test to determine which like math class you're put into. And there's you know, like whichever one your aptitude is up to, whatever your like speed is up to, like that's the class that you have to take. You know, like that's reasonable, you know? Like that's fair. Or like if you want to take honors English, you can sign up to take the test. You have to make sure you get a B in the previous English, and then you can get an honors English. You know, like I feel like that's a reasonable way to approach things. But the fact that we like pluck kids out in the first grade and we tell them that they have to take an IQ test that says like, what's this? It's a squirrel. Oh, congratulations, you're gifted. Like, and then they're permanently gifted. Like you don't have to take a new test each year. You're permanently a part of the gifted program. And like, I had a lot of friends growing up that were part of the gifted program, and it's just like I was asked to join it. I was like, no, that sounds like stupid. Why would I want to like sign up for extra work? Number one, like why the fuck? What kind of a 16-year-old wants to sign up for extra work? That's creepy. That's a creepy ass 16-year-old in my book. Like why the fuck are you doing this? You know you're like drinking off. You're doing nothing. You're doing nothing already. Like why are you signing up to do more nothing? Like, come on, that's just dumb. Like, you're not trying to better yourself. It's not like you can write down on a job application that, I'm gifted, by the way, like, according to my first grade teacher. Like, fuck that. That's just stupid. But I've a very strong opinion on that as well. I was approached to be put in it, and I was only approached in my senior year after I've already made these, like, formative, jaded opinions about the subject. So I bet if I'd have been approached in like, my third grade, I probably would have said yes, and I probably would have a totally different opinion of it. But it's whenever I like witnessed what it does to other people and the way that other people treat it and the way that other people react to it, I by the time that it got around to me, I was like, no, fuck that. That is stupid. Like that's absolutely asinine. I don't, honestly, I don't think it gives too many people like a negative like impact on them. I think that some of the people that are put into it like are a little more not rightfully confident, and maybe they are a little more like motivated to do well in the rest of their studies. But I feel like it's an unfair advantage to some people, and it also socially changes people a lot. Like I said, a lot of them, they didn't have to not eat lunch with the regular people, but a lot of them chose to because they were allowed to eat lunch in the gifted room. So they could if they wanted to. They could go and spend. It'd be like going to the library to eat your lunch or whatever if you were allowed to do that in your high school, but or going outside or whatever. But they had a special room that was just for them. Yeah, I mean that's the way that it was in my high school, and I've heard stories of other people in other high schools saying the same thing. But just conceptually, it seems like an unfair advantage granted to people for kissing ass. That's the way I view it, personally. I don't think it really does any that much harm to anyone. Like maybe it makes some people look assholes, but people are assholes anyway, so not too terrible. Well, like I said, I wasn't approached until like my junior or senior year, so it was already so late along that I was like, this is stupid horseshit. They were like, yeah, it sounds like stupid horseshit. But my sister is in it, and so she's younger than me. They obviously already heard my opinions on it and how dumb I think it is. But she said she wanted to be a part of it, and they were like, well, if you want to, like, go for it. Like, why not? Yeah, they didn't push for it or anything. They don't see the value in it either. They don't see any harm. I personally think that there's like a detriment to the world because it exists, but they don't see it that way. They see it as like a no harm, no risk, like low pressure. If you want to, go for it. If you don't, don't. But they didn't really care. Got out of the way. For a living right now, I guess I really don't have a living. I'm a student and all that, so I kind of subsist off of the money that they give you as a student to live off of. But I have an internship that's paid, so I have a little bit of extra money right now because I work for the university. I'm getting paid through the university to have an internship with my advisor through my major, and my advisor is making a presentation for the NALA conference in Texas this year, and he has to make like a big ass presentation for it. And he's having me do research for him, and he's just giving me university money to do research for him on this, and it's a nice setup. I have an office all to myself. I go in, I slap on a computer and do some Microsoft Access and Excel and all that. I happen to be pretty good at Access and Excel, which is like something that he's like, wow, that's incredible. Let's have you make as many reports and figures and all this, and I'm pretty okay at it. I think the big thing is a lot of people hate it so much that they're unwilling to Google things, but I'm totally okay with like Google. How do I do this in Access? And it can tell you how to do it. Like I think it's pretty interesting. So what I'm doing in the research is we're comparing the amount of time that it takes for natural gas companies, depending on like their amount of capital that they have to invest, and like the size and scope of a company as compared to how long it takes for them to get through governmental regulations and how long it takes for them to actually get like a drill in the ground. So like the spread of that is like enormous. Like there's a lot of tiny natural gas companies, there's a lot of big natural gas companies, and the research is actually like showing that medium-sized companies get everything done quicker somehow. I think that maybe governmental regulations are a little bit more strict on big companies for some reason. I don't know how. It feels like it should be just like a slope of like the more money you have, the more time that you can crank out an application quicker. So you'd think you'd get it done quicker. But I guess that like a medium-sized company is just the best for being able to get a drill in the ground fastest. So like EQT, for example, like the company out in Pittsburgh, like the big Equitransit, whatever they're equitable resources is what they're called. But EQT, like that big company, they've got like the sponsorship for like the Penguins and all that. They're a big ass company. They take longer than like a smaller company like Antero can get it done quicker because they just, I don't know, I guess like the government cares more about what EQT is doing than what Antero is doing. It's interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. It's not very taxing work either. I just sit there and like go through DEP records and add it to databases and compare the databases and delete the things that are wrong. It's interesting. My free time? Well, I work a lot at the radio station. I used to be the music director at the radio station, and I was the music director up until this past May. and the music director is in charge of all the music that's like played over the air for the regular rotation, and they also have like a say in what's acceptable for all the specialty shows as well. But there are also specialty show directors that help them do just that specialty show. But the music director just like is like promoters call the music director and they like submit albums, and the music director's opinion on an album is like what determines whether or not the radio station plays it or not. So that was really fun. It was very enjoyable. So I still spend a lot of time there. I still like have a lot of shows that I do there. Particularly, I have one show on Sundays that I still consider myself the director of. I say coordinator. I think that the designation of director means that you're paid. I'm not paid to do the show that I have, but other than that, I listen to a lot of records, drink some beers every now and then, hang out. I wish I had more like actual hobbies. The only big hobby that I say I really have that I do is I'm really into very actively listening to music. Like I'm very frequently I will turn off what I'm doing and like just listen to music as like something that I do. Like that's something that I do all the time. And I listen to 3 brand new albums a day, 3 albums a day that I haven't heard before. And that's I've done that since January 1st of 2015. Yeah, I've done it for 2.5 years now. So that's what is that? So 600 plus 150, so 750 times 3, 2,200 albums I've listened to since I've started that. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It sounds way more daunting than it is, though. Like, a lot of people say, well, how do you have enough time in the day? It's like, well, if you're driving your car, you're probably listening to music. Just, like, a lot of people naturally want to listen to, like, what they're familiar with, and it took a while for me to get in the habit of not wanting to listen to things that I'm familiar with and, like, wanting to listen to things that I'm unfamiliar with. But I always kind of had, like a drive to listen to things that I'm not familiar with. But, like, the commitment of 3 albums a day is, like, that it forces you to do it even whenever you don't feel like it, Like, if you feel like listening to this one album that you've already heard before, I have to make sure that I'm like, well, if I listen to, like, I have enough time left in the day that I can still listen to 3 albums that I haven't heard before today. I mean, like, I hear it and it's gone, most of it, but I can give, like, a general synopsis, like a feeling, like a rating out of 10 for every album. Like, if I pulled up any of them that I've listened to in the past 2 years, I could definitely like say something about it. Maybe I couldn't tell you the exact like which songs I liked or whatever, but I could say, oh, I liked it, I didn't like it, it was good, it was okay, like what genre it is. Like, I'm a idiot. I actually pay for 2 streaming services. You know how like they have Spotify and all that. Well, with the student discount, I use Spotify and Apple Music because both of them have good reasons to buy both. So I pay a total of $10 a month in music subscription because they're both half off if you're a student. Spotify, the good thing about Spotify is that I can remote control it. Like I can have my phone over there on the speaker and I can control it from my laptop, and that's nice. Or I can send people playlists on Spotify because everyone else has Spotify. Like not everyone, most people don't have Apple Music. So Apple Music is good because Spotify has a limit on how much you are able to save to your like library, and Apple Music doesn't. So my Apple Music probably has like 3,000 or 4,000 albums like saved. You don't actually have to like download it, but I'm saying like remember that I have clicked this, and whenever I click the albums that I've listened to on the streaming service, like I can go through and see a catalog of like a visual, like these are all of the albums that I know, and if I'm building someone a playlist, I have that to look at. Spotify limits you to I think like 10,000 songs or something like that. Go through that damn quick if you're trying to do this. Like you run out of a Spotify account like in a minute. Like it takes no time at all. I guess I buy the records, but the records are more or less just for like collection purpose. I don't think that the records are like really any better or anything. I prefer to like, if I like an artist enough to buy one of their records, it's because I want to support them and I want to buy a piece of like physical media to support them, like financially or some way. Like I would rather have a t-shirt than a record, honestly, but I can only have so many t-shirts. Well, I don't know anybody that's really making a big deal out of it. I don't think anyone really does that. But the fact that everything's available on YouTube anyway, it's just like, what I'm doing by illegally downloading is I'm making it more convenient for me to listen to this music that I could already listen to for free if I really wanted to. Like it's if I also illegally download things if it's not available on those streaming services, and I'll throw it up on my streaming service so I can have access to it if there's something that I really want to listen to. But no, it doesn't hurt anything. Of course, I mean, like, would people still be making music then? Like, if legally downloading like actually stopped it, like, well, yeah, like it doesn't hurt anything. Everything's available on YouTube anyway, so I could just YouTube on my phone and I'd be able to find it. I just don't want to use data and I don't want to use the YouTube app or whatever, consume battery and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I really followed just about everything. Like I was a pretty good kid. I didn't really do anything like wrong per se. Mostly because the home that I had like was so isolating. Not like my parents' fault or anything. It's just I didn't have a car growing up, and even if I wanted to go and like be 16 and like smoke weed or something or do something stupid like that, I didn't have like a car or a job or any way to like attain this. I didn't have enough friends to come pick me up anyways. So I mean, I don't know. I spent a lot of time at home. I didn't do anything wrong per se. I didn't really like do anything terrible during school. I wasn't too rebellious other than I was passionate about things and wasn't willing to not willing to back down for them for like any reason. Like I'm very willing to have arguments with people, or at least I was. Hell yeah, there's a ton of things. I guess back then I believed that there was such a thing as a good music taste. That's something. It was probably formative in like why I listen to so much and why I guess that opinion's changed since I've been in college. I also used to believe in politics. I used to think that politics was like a worthwhile thing to be passionate about and a worthwhile thing to think and talk about. I don't really believe that anymore. I think that politics are stupid. It's just no point. I think that the people who are in power are going to retain that control and do what they want. Maybe they'll do some things to appease like people in like some kind of surfactory way, but I don't need to be a part of that. I don't need to be like a part of like thinking that my voice matters. It doesn't. My voice doesn't matter. No one's voice matters, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Unless you have money, influence, and resources, like your opinion doesn't matter. No, I voted in the primary. I'm a registered Republican specifically because whenever the election cycle was coming up, I was like, wow, the Republican Party looks really interesting this year. It looks like something that I'm gonna hedge my bets on. But I refuse. Also, like the whole concept of voting and the whole concept of politics doesn't make too much sense to me because you are like consenting whenever you vote for someone. You are consenting to be governed by that person. You are consenting and you are saying that this person has my best interests at heart. Everyone knows, though, why do you tell kids not to talk to strangers? Is it because all strangers have your best interests at heart, or like we assume that nobody has your best interests at heart? We assume, like naturally, walking around the street, that if I leave my wallet somewhere, someone's going to pick it up and take it. That's just the way that the world is. Nobody has my best interests at heart other than myself. That's the only person who cares about like me and what I do and my well-being. Maybe like, some close loved ones like your family or whatever, but like the idea that someone isolated from me is supposed to care about what's best for me, that just seems dumb as hell. Like I don't trust that at all. Like I don't understand how people do. Like that's what kind of things motivate someone to be a politician? You can make a big list of things that motivates people to be a politician, but really like bettering other people is normally not on the list. Maybe they'll put it on the list, but that's not really why people do it. People go to school studying political science. You think like an 18-year-old just got out of high school, they really care about like what they don't even know the constituency. You know what I mean? Like what the whole concept of it makes no sense to me. I voted in the primary just because I thought it was interesting. Oh yeah, Gary Johnson, or was it Gary Johnson? The Ohio dude. Not Gary Johnson. Ohio, Republican primary. John Kasich. That's who I voted for, yeah. Yeah, but also I found out that I thought that I was wrong about that as well afterwards. John Kasich, after I kind of like read up on him more, and I thought about him more, I was like, wow, this guy's not too great either. Like, I mean, I don't think there's such thing as a good politician other than Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse the Body Ventura is the only politician that's got my vote, but that's that's it's equally horrible. Like, I don't believe that we've had a president that hasn't been horrible. Like, start to end. Like, I've never been a president who hasn't been horrible. Every president up until Lincoln was okay with slavery. I'm very not okay with that. I would not consent to be governed in that way. Like, I would not vote for any president before Lincoln because of that. I wouldn't vote for Lincoln either. Lincoln wanted to send all of the Africans back to Africa. That sounds dumb as hell as well. Like, maybe make some consent in there. You can pick every president forever. Like, the United States hasn't been out of a war for like longer than a decade, like ever. And none of the wars have been about anything like really meaningful. Like, oh, we're killing Indians. That's a good reason to kill people. Like, just because we want their land. Like, that's honestly like probably the most justifiable war that we've had in American history, and it is obviously not justifiable. Killing Native Americans so we can have their land. At least that has like a logical train of thought as to how that's supposed to benefit the people who are doing it. But like killing people in Vietnam, how the fuck's that supposed to help some 18-year-old from Boston? Like that does not help him at all. At least killing Native Americans, he gets to keep the land after he's done. Like he's killing him for himself, but and he should also feel bad. But like, no governmental structure has ever done anything to benefit anyone other than the people involved in the governmental structure. Like that's, and I'm not involved in it, and I'm not going to benefit from it. So what's the point in voting? Like I don't stand to gain anything. Well, I should say there are some governmental structures that I approve of. I believe that we need to have fire departments, just as an example. We should have, I don't know, we should have public transportation. Like, these are all government based things. I can't really speak on police necessarily. A lot of people that I know believe that police have a net negative over the world rather than like a net positive. I'm not sure where I stand on that. I don't think I'm traveled enough to really have a very good opinion. Well, I have a unformed opinion that I think we at least need sheriffs. I think that like the concept of the sheriff is very necessary, but the police I'm a little hazier on. Like I'm a little more on the no, we don't need that side, you know? Because if someone kills my brother, you know, like the police are gonna be a half an hour until they get there anyway. So it really aren't helping. Like them walking around, I think that is a net negative. Like for the amount of bad things that happen in the world, I think that police walking around is a net negative. But you know, the fact that if someone steals my car, I can call the police and get them to try to find my car for me. I don't have the resources to do that, and having a governmental agency to be able to do that is something that I think is like necessary. But that could be just a sheriff. You know, like a sheriff doesn't like patrol the streets. You know, we don't need like roaming prison guards like what we have now. Like we have like roaming guards that are meant to prevent you from thinking about doing something illegal. I think that's not good. But honestly, all of those opinions that I have, also, I don't feel like I'm well educated enough in like police theory to understand like how necessary like police psychology. I don't have a good enough education in that. That's another reason why I think voting is stupid. You know, the fact that my opinion matters just as much as the dipshit who just says that we can't have a woman president and votes for Trump. Like, so that opinion is equal by the standards of voting. Like that's what? Like if I want to be a good citizen and I want to vote, I have to like read up on things and I have to like care about things, but there's no promise or guarantee that anyone else is going to do the same. Like there's no like if I don't know how much you believe about either the conspiracy theories about either candidate, but there's a lot of them. And if you read up on either of them, I'm sure either of them would be a very compelling and would make you vote for the other person. Like, but there's equal stories and equal terrible things. It's happened. I don't doubt it. I don't believe that there's been any politician who's done a good thing in their lives, other than Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, always. I mean, if you think everyone has to have some kind of motivation for what they do ever, and you have to be motivated to be a politician. So, if you're a politician, you could just do some basic like psychology right now, and you could say, well, clearly this person is attracted to the idea of power. Is that the person that you want in power? Not necessarily, right? Like probably not. Like if I were to like have my druthers, I'd probably pick someone who like genuinely is like a philanthropist who cares about the good of other people. But the type of people who try to be politicians are people that are well connected, people that see room for gain. They have an idea that they want to be famous or powerful. You know, like there's just intrinsically, or else you're not going to try to be a politician. Like what, right? Like, is that, like what motivates someone to sign up for politics? As like they have to be doing something bad already. Like there's nothing. I don't think there's a good politician. The word that I use to people, and this is a made up horseshit phrase I just came up with myself, but I say that I'm politically agnostic. I believe that there is no correct solution and there never will be. I believe that everything is always going to be like people with more power are always going to exert that power over other people, and there will always be injustice. We can strive for something better, and if something better comes my way and I see better like political things, then I might be willing to vote for it if I believe that like I will actually personally gain from it. The world will be bettered by this person, and maybe I'll consider voting for it. But like I'm not holding my breath, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I don't really believe in the concept of like a good candidate. I don't think that I'm ever going to see one in my life. And I don't believe that, and even the people who aren't candidates, I don't think that necessarily like Nazis or anti-fascists or fascists or any of these people are necessarily 100% right. I think it's impossible to be right. I think that people are always going to suffer somehow, and it just can't be avoided. So I say politically agnostic is the phrase that I've coined. I think that all systems can and will be used to abuse people. That's just like what you can see throughout history. Like I personally, I guess some people have differing opinions, but like the you could say a lot of people would say that we haven't seen socialism actually enacted anywhere. Like that's a big thing that people say is like, well, there has never actually been socialism. But where there has been like semi-socialist structures, it has been abused to hurt people, and that's again, if you sign up for it, then you're signing up for it. You know, like that's I don't want to sign up for anything because like it's gonna happen no matter what. Something's gonna happen no matter what, and if I sign up for it, I feel like more of an idiot. You know, like I have to participate in it because I'm alive and I want shoes and pants and food and be able to live, so I kind of have to participate in it. But if you're signing up to participate in it and you like want to participate in it, you're signing up for all the negatives that like come with it. And I'm just not willing to do that. Like I'm sure that some things are probably better than what we have, but I also think that everything can and will be used to abuse people in some way. You know, the people that make the rules are going to make the rules based upon some reason. They're going to have a reason to make the rules, and most of the time people's reasons for doing things aren't the betterment of humanity, you know? Like, suppose you want to socialize healthcare. I bet that there are a ton of good reasons to do that. I think a single payer system would be great, but there's a reason why we don't have a single payer system. Why was Obamacare put into place instead of a single payer system? Like most people that you talk to would be okay with a single payer system, so why don't we have that? Well, because we have an opportunity to abuse people, so we have an opportunity to like make more money off of things. We have an opportunity to when I say abuse people, I don't mean hurt people necessarily. A lot of people that are libertarian were like or any kind of right leaning will have like offense to me saying abuse people because they're willingly participating in a system. But no transaction with Walmart is ever going to be 100% like consensual. You know what I mean? Like if I have to buy rice from Walmart because Walmart is the cheapest place to buy rice and I need rice to live, then I'm not really consenting to this. It's technically like a consensual agreement. You know, I'm going and I'm buying it and I'm going through it and all that. But like, if the consent of it just isn't really there. You know, like the illusion of choice is there. I was actually having a interesting thought experiment with my dad not long ago. We were driving down the road and he was telling me about how he wouldn't buy a General Motors vehicle because they accepted bailout money in 2008. Which is a reasonable stance. You know, like if you don't want the government to be involved in your car making process because the government screws everything up, then like, I understand that, but he said, so I said, so what would you buy then, other than a General Motors vehicle? And he said, well, I'd buy a Ford. And I said, do you know who owns Ford? So you're saying our government owns a part of General Motors. Do you know who owns Ford? Do you know who you're supporting instead of our government? And he said, well, no. I'm just on my phone, and I just Google it, and the primary parent company of Ford is an Italian investment firm. Like, just fun fact: the primary parent company of Ford is an Italian investment firm. They have like a major sharehold on it. No longer even owned by Americans, which, like, I don't know why you'd care whether or not it's owned by Americans or Italians, but the point is, when you get to a certain level of anything, there's just illusions of choice, you know? If and then like, we kept going down all the different cars and all the different makes and models that we saw along the road, and we kept Googling, like, who makes BMW, who's the primary like benefactor of BMW, the end profits, the money that's made off the top, like, who takes that money? Like, you can Google it. I don't remember what that was, but specifically Ford, I remember, was like an interesting one, because like you think like, well, American industry, Jeep is owned by Daimler, which is German, but who's Daimler owned by? It's owned by I think like a Japanese investment firm. I could be wrong about that. Someone will fact check me, I'm sure. But like, if you're nothing's really what we have as an illusion of choice, you know? Like, if we say that we are participating in like a communal structure by going to a co-op, right? Like that, the co-op gets its stuff from somewhere and yada yada yada, but there's room in capitalism for this to exist, and there's room for us to be charged more money for it, and that's why it's still an illusion, you know? It's still the same process is happening. Like, there's no way around like the inherent will of people to, when I say abuse, it's like, if I can trick you into giving me $20 in some way, then I'm like abusing you. It's still a consensual thing though. Like, if I think that a pack of 12 Yingling bottles is worth $18, then you're tricking me into thinking that it is worth that, because like, I guess you're providing like convenience or whatever. You put up like a capital thing or whatever to like have a storefront and all that, but it's not worth that. That's not the value of that. Like, you were the whole point of like storefronts is to get people to come in and buy things for more than what they're worth. You know, like the whole structure is to like buy things for more than what they're worth, and you make money off of that. Like that, like the way that capitalism works is like finding people that are dumb enough to buy something, like people that are able to be abused in such a way that you're able to sell this and make a profit. And like, obviously some businesses flounder and some, you know, do well or whatever, and like some things are slightly more ethical than others, but if I put a house up in New York City and I spend $10,000 on the construction of the house and I only spend $10,000 on the land, I should charge whatever that is plus labor, right? But that's not the way that it is. Like, you do that to get more money than that. Like, people are always trying to get more than labor, because that's just what smart is. Like, and I'm actively participating in that. All of us are. We're actively participating in trying to make something better than the people around us. We're all actively competing, and those competitions are, in essence, like, that is the competition itself is trying to make other people dumber and more worse off than you. Like, everyone wants to be better than the people around them in some way, or at least better off than the people around them. You know, like, I would prefer to be doing better than my neighbor. You know, I don't want my neighbor to fail necessarily. Like, that's why it's not. I guess abusive is a kind of a harsh term, but like, if I'm selling someone a case of beer, I'm not like actively wanting ill towards them. I just want them to think that it's worth the price that I'm willing to sell it to them for. You know, and that's, yeah. I mean, maybe with this context, it helps a little bit. Like, abuse is a bit of a harsh term. Like, what I'm saying though is, a lot of anarchists will say this, and I do agree with this. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. There is no such thing as ethically partaking in something, because there's always a system of abuse. You know, like, if I'm an employer, it is in my best interest to find whoever can do the job for the cheapest. I don't care about whether or not their kids can go to college. I care about, like, capitalism tells me that I will be rewarded if I can get cheaper labor. Like if my labor can still do the same job and do it for cheaper, then I don't care about like the lives of whoever I'm dealing with. That's just the way that capitalism works. It's a fair and ethical or it's a fair. Well, it's not. It's not ethical. It's not really fair either. But like that's just the way the system works. No, we would, I guess, right? There are spaces in capitalism for there's spaces within capitalism that it like makes sense for companies to be nicer. Like we like to pretend that everything that we see around us is like certain things aren't capitalism, but everything is. Like public universities is like that's definitely capitalism. Maybe they have the government has an incentive to give me like grant money to go to college. That's still capitalism. Like they're giving me money. Like they're doing something that's good for me, but they're still trying to get as much money out of me as possible. I mean, socialism is can be created by capitalism. Like it's a the only like socialism that you can like really see is like the Native Americans existing in like areas that don't have money. Like money not existing is like what I would consider like actual socialism. Like we're going to a public university. Like this is a public place. It's anyone can be in here if they apply to it and they have enough money to pay the things. And some people can get grants to get in for free or whatever. But all of it has like space under capitalism, and money existing is like the motivating factor for like everything. You kind of have to have money in like a society of our size. There's a lot of like scopes and sizes and things that like money is inherently beneficial. All of the politics things that I'm talking about, I'm sure I seem like I'm pretty like knowledgeable or passionate one way or the other, but I very actively believe that if we had any other system, it would be just as bad. There would be something else going on that would, even with no money, yeah, like you were saying, somebody would hold on to like, well, I built this house, I built this other person a house, so I'm good, right? Forever, like that. Yeah, like there has to be some kind of system of that. But the fact that I can own a shirt company and never go into it and make money off of the shirt company, like that's I suppose a lot of my anarchist friends would correct me on the terminology and say what I'm criticizing is capital, not money. So the system of accruing like a sum of money is like something that's bad. So you still have money, but like the idea of accruing capital, having like large sums of money, because large sums of money can earn more money. They can do crazy things. Like large sums of money are like weird, anomalous beings. Like they're bad. Like. But there's inherent good things and bad things about every system. I think that if there were an ethical war that I wanted to participate in, which there could be. I couldn't name one, off the top of my head, but like World War II. There you go. That's an ethical war. Yeah, I mean they're trying to kill all Jewish people. That sounds bad. That sounds like inherently bad. I'm okay with fighting against something that's that inherently bad. Or like suppose North Korea just tries to start bombing us because Kim Jong Un's just crazy like that. I would be okay with personally like helping that war, like with my hands, like doing something to personally defend my land for that reason. But the fact of the matter remains that like most wars that we have are not fought over real things. They're fought over make-believe things that aren't real. I guess the last like real ethical war that we can think of probably would be like World War II. Like maybe Korea. Korea was not. Yeah, I don't have a good enough historical background to even speak on it. I'm not too well versed on Korea either. I bet everyone knows that like Vietnam was like a kind of a bad idea. Everyone will say that like Iraq was kind of a bad idea. Operation Iraqi Freedom is kind of not the best idea. You have all these things that are like very clearly we are trying to do something other than what we are pretending to do in like media and like outward appearances. Like, oh, we're trying to stop the spread of terrorism. We're definitely not trying to collect oil. We're definitely not trying to force people away from like where the oil is. We're definitely not trying to allow free capitalist trade in this area. Free capitalist trade in little air quotes and all that. But if there were like ethical wars, I think that a person's I wouldn't be morally opposed to a draft. Like I would think that maybe not like mandatory, but like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
they kind of that by the nature of it, right? But with like you know how like in the drafts that happened in the 1970s for Vietnam, like you could be drafted and then you could go to college, or you could say that you were a Quaker, or you could like you could sign up to like be a cook and help the effort in that way. Yeah, I guess if there was some kind of system that says that like you must participate in some factor here, you got to do something, you can sign up for a job, and maybe the frontline infantry is the most well compensated. That'd be something that like I would. It really comes back to the fact that there haven't been any ethical wars for like ever. Like you could name like two maybe that have been like ethical wars. But if there were more ethical reasons to fight people, then I could see the reason for a society needing the help of all people in a society, because it's just it's manpower heavy, like you need it, you have to have it. But if there were more ethical wars, if there was like more domestic threats, then I would say there'd be more of a reason for it. But I guess the fact that there aren't, and the fact that historically most of our wars have been kind of made up things that are not really great, kind of throws a wrench into that theory. Like you can't really do too much to get to a point where like I wouldn't want to force anyone to go to Vietnam. Like Vietnam seems like a place that like if you really want to sign up to be a part of the infantry in Vietnam, I guess go for it. But the fact that most people disagreed with it and still had to go anyway, like well that's a hell of a problem in it. That does kind of become like slavery. But if there were more like you must defend like the homeland, like I could see why like there's value in that. Like if you're going to call that slavery, like defending the land that you live on, like that seems like less of a slavery thing. We don't have that many domestic threats though. There's nothing going on really that's like no one's invading. Yeah, but most people, you wouldn't need a draft, right? Most people would be like, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. I will join the military to go and prevent an invasion because I care about this land. Like I care about the land that I live in. But ethics can be debated, and also I'm sure a lot of people experience very different things than I do. I'm sure that a lot of the people currently in Afghanistan or in Iraq or Iran or any of these countries, I'm sure that many of the American soldiers out there have good reasons to pull the trigger. Like they themselves, without the influence of somebody telling them to, I'm sure that a lot of them have seen things that have been horrible, and I'm sure that a lot of them like have very darn good ethical reasons why they think that what they're doing is just. But from our perspective as like, we're sitting here in not war, like I don't see a reason for me to go over there and see that, like I don't want to. Like I would prefer not to. If I could, I would prefer to not kill people, I mean, if it comes down to I guess there are things that you could say would be like ethical reasons to fight. Like if you I don't know, like human trafficking. Like if there's like a human trafficking thing, and like the Navy wants to bust up a human trafficking ring, and so they have like naval ships and sailors go and do these things, and they shoot them and the poo poo, and like they kill the people who are doing it. I would say that might be ethical, and people doing that are pulling the triggers have like good ethical reasons behind doing it. Yeah, sure. So I used to work at a local bar and restaurant as a host, and most of the time they hire you as a host with like the hopes of you know eventually you'll be moved up to server and you'll begin to actually make money and yada yada. But I was a host for 7 months there, and over the course of 7 months, the first like 4 months, I was very okay with like I'm just doing this until they move me up, and that was okay. But once I got to like 5 months, I was like, man, this is kind of taking a minute. This is taking a good while, ain't it? But so I was working there for like 7 months, and I was like, man, this is taking forever. And also people that started like 2 or 3 months into whenever I got there, that had experience like waiting, were being bumped up to a waiter before I was. And this restaurant is like a dead restaurant. There was really not many people there. I probably was making more money as a host than I would have as a server anyway. But it doesn't matter though. Like the I still felt like I was being intentionally passed on, and for reasons that I couldn't quite understand. And I was like, man, show up early every day. I do a good job every single day. Why am I not allowed to like train to do this other job? That's why I'm here. You know, like I don't want to be hosting and like seating people for the whole time. That just sounds like, I don't want to do that. Like so, but uh, I mentioned it to my boss and I was like, "Hey, can I be moved up to training to server someday?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, eventually, soon, yeah, whatever." And it just like never happened, and it took forever. And there were enough people that were hired after me that had like some level of serving experience. I was just kind of confident that I was just never going to be moved up, especially because. But what really irked me about it was he kept saying that there was like serving experience, and like people's serving experience would be like, yeah, I worked at like a pizza shop for like 2 months as a server because like it was a smaller thing, and they technically had like serving experience. It's like after I've worked at this restaurant 4 days a week for 5 months, you think I have enough experience to like I already know the whole menu, I already know how to interact with people, you already pay me to do that, so what else? What am I missing here? Like I can hold a conversation with someone that I've never met. I can do that. Yep. So why am I not qualified to do that? That doesn't make any sense. I have 7 months of experience working at this restaurant. How is that? How can you tell me that anyone working at any other restaurant is as valuable as 7 months of working at this restaurant? That doesn't make any sense. So I felt like it was because the manager that I had just didn't like me for some arbitrary reason. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to sign up to keep working for someone who I feel like doesn't like me and, is only employing me because they have to have somebody to do the job. And I was like, hell with that. It was minimum wage anyway, so I was like, well, what? Am I going to really miss out on this minimum wage job? I'll just go to find any other minimum wage job if I need it. Yeah, I gave him a few weeks notice. I already had like some scheduled off time for a vacation. I was like, just don't schedule me afterwards. I'm not going to continue working here. Actually, what I said to him was I was like, well, if you want to move me up, then you can. If you don't, then I'm going to not come back after this vacation. He was like, yeah, well, we don't really have space or room at the time right now. And I'm like, well, all right then, fair enough. I was just like sick and tired of watching people who were promoted ahead of me continuously fuck up on like really simple things. Like one guy, without naming a name, like one guy didn't know what a flight was, and we were working at a bar. Like I was like, how do you not know what a flight of beer is? A customer asks you, what can I get a flight? How much is a flight? He's like, oh, what's a flight? Like, the fuck? How are you working at a restaurant and you don't like a bar? How do you work at a bar? You're getting like paid more than me through tips and all that. You're getting paid more than me to not know what a flight is. Like, what the hell? Like, or not know what an IBU is. Like, you're working at a bar. You should know what an IBU is. Like, you should know what beers taste like, hoppy or malty. Like, you should be able to know that. But it was like consistently, they would like people that were ahead of me were like continually fucking up, and I would like correct them on it and be like, hey, this is what this is. Like here's. It was in the manual. If you read it, you would know. Like that's what that is. Like, but I don't know. I try not to be bitter about it. It is what it is. I'm okay with it. It's fine. Moved on. I got a better job now anyway. Yeah, I went home for a little bit, and then I was told about the hiring for the internship after like a week of me being home. I ended up coming back to 2 weeks after I left. If possible, I mean, I'm telling people that my absolute goal is to move to Texas as soon as I graduate, which would be like January 1. I'm trying to be, you know, in Houston if I can, like moved in, ready to go, ready to rock. But if I fail horribly, I could stick around here. There's some companies in town that exist and they work, and there'd be like less money for me to stay here, because I wouldn't have to pay for a whole bunch of different things, and or I could go to Pittsburgh. That'll be like less of an investment to move stuff, a couple hundred miles rather than, a couple thousand miles. It's a big difference in cost. Like I would have to find an apartment in Houston that I could rent furnished for at least, a while to figure everything out until I can buy my own stuff down there. Because I'm not transporting like a bed to Houston. That'd be a real pain. Yeah, I can't take this desk with me. So. I like it's nice. It's tiny. Specifically, I like the tiny desk. It's got the nice little tray thing here. Fits well. I could understand someone's perspective on that, and maybe it depends on what your definitions of racism are. Some people have different definitions of like violence. People have different definitions of abuse. People have different definitions of like what racism is, what fair is. Like that's those are terms that if everyone had the same understanding of those terms, and I think that everyone would agree that like like I don't think that people of other races are necessarily afforded the same privileges that a white person is in America for a lot of reasons. For one, all humans are more likely to uh, talk to and engage with people that have more similarities with them. And it just so happens that all of the rich people in America are white, you know? So if you want to have some kind of nepotism, it's a lot easier to obtain that nepotism by like meeting somebody in an elevator if you happen to be the same race as them. You know, it's a lot easier to like communicate with somebody if people didn't view uh, people of different races differently, then maybe it would be an equal playing field. But that just people inherently like, black, white, or whatever, in both directions. Like people are more willing to and more able to readily communicate and like engage with people that are more similar to them. That's just the way that people are. And also the fact that a lot of white people are in power is like, well, then they effectively choose like who gets more benefits. They're not actively choosing it. It's not like by the law written down that there's going to be like white people get more or whatever. As a matter of fact, it's kind of written in the opposite way with affirmative action. But I think affirmative action is a good thing because like so many of the 1% or like just like regular ass business owners, people who have accrued some amount of capital and have the opportunity to hire someone for like something, some people who have the opportunity to promote people, like those people end up being white and they end up having like everyone has some kind of prejudice against people for some reason. It just so happens that the people in control are white, and the people who are in control, it happens to be that way. I think that we've obviously made good improvements. We no longer have at least on the scale that we used to. I can't say never because I don't know. I'm sure that it does happen, but we don't have like race lynchings too often anymore in around these parts, at least. Like it doesn't really happen. Like Africa, yeah, it's something you hear about in other parts of the world that have like human trafficking and shit like that. But like most of America, I think we're all pretty well off. There's a significant racism towards Hispanics in America. I think that like that's a huge problem. There's a significant racism towards. I mean, there's prejudice towards everybody, so it's a thing. People have an impression and an idea of a person based upon their skin whenever they meet them, but that's just the way that it is. The problem is that all the people in control and the people with power are all one thing. And so that's what I think affirmative action is trying to fix, kind of, is that, well, we should have some business owners who are black, right? As kind of like, come on, like why don't we have any of that, Like why is it that all of the white people are all in power? That's not good. And then it's obviously working now, like you can find a good amount of businesses and employers that are different races and do different things. Racism is totally still real and alive, though, to answer your question in simple terms. Totally, of course. Like I don't understand. It never will not be alive. I mean, no. I mean, it's just people inherently have. If I see a movie that depicts a white person as a serial killer, then I'm as like a child. Maybe I'll kind of subconsciously, somewhere in the back of my mind, trust white people a little bit less, Like, I might think that, I'll be more scared of them as, like, being rapists or whatever, but, like, everyone knows at their heart of hearts, and if anyone's asked about it, like, do you think that this race of people is this one thing? Like, no, most people that have an opinion like that are dying in nursing homes. Like that's correct. But like as far as like the microaggressions and like the small things that happen to people on a day-to-day basis, like people assuming that all white people have like privilege, like that's something like that's something it's just you can kind of assume it, kind of not really, but like there's a lot of like prejudices on all people across all things. I don't think that those will ever go away. I mean, I hope so. I try my best to actively make sure that I don't have anything from any systems of prejudice, you know? But try, but not necessarily. Can't really control what your brain does too well. And Matt can. I hope his tires get slashed. I hope they're getting slashed right now. Fuck you, Matt. I love you, Jackson. I love you, Herbie, and I love you, Ben. I love all you people, and Rachel as well. All these great people. What? Yeah, just not Matt. Fuck Matt. Oh man, he probably will never see this anyways. But he's the general manager of the radio station. He's like the. So we had a general manager of the radio station who also sucked, but he was absent, and he was okay because he was absent. You know, like his name was Alex, and he would show up like once every month or so, and he would come in and he would like be on some kind of drugs, and he'd throw some shit and he'd like leave, and that would be like Matt. That was Alex Cabula because he was salaried and he worked for the university. He had some small amount of money. He had no family and he had some issues. I feel more pity for Alex than anything, but Matt is the guy who they have like replacing him. He's like 35 and he's a total wiener. I think that we made a horrible decision when we hired him. I hope he gets fired. He's made the radio station go from like a place that I really love and I'm really happy about to a place that like I can't wait for it to burn now. It's burning. It's going down. No one wants to be there anymore. All the directors are quitting. Well, listeners are being affected because the DJs are leaving, but like he doesn't affect the listeners directly. He used to insert himself into shows until we actually had to stop him from like coming on to shows. We had like a talk show that we had that was like a Sunday or a Friday morning talk show, you know, and we had so many problems with him coming on and saying things that were like ridiculously offensive, like things that like we were as college students we were like, damn, you should tone it back, please. Like, I'm okay with like some lewd stuff. Like, we can talk about some things that are like, you know, whatever on a college radio station, because like the only limits that you have to follow are FCC regulations. But whenever this like 35-year-old dude is talking to like a 20-year-old about like nipples, I'm kind of like uncomfortable. Like, I want that to stop. Like, not as a listener, just as like a coworker. Like, please stop. That's inappropriate. Also as a listener, that's like boring shit radio. I don't want to hear that. It's dumb. If you do want to hear that, then fuck you, quit listening to college radio. Listen to something else then. Because, like, it's college radio. We ain't trying to, like, be some kind of, like, shocking Howard Stern shit. This is... Why would... If you're signing up to listen to college radio, I would guess that the average listener of college radio wants to hear more different music that they haven't heard before. You know, like a larger, like, quantity of music they haven't heard before. They want to hear, like, variations. They want to hear, like, a wide genre. They want to hear, like... things that are not necessarily as palatable as like regular radio. That and Howard Stern, they don't like intersect. Those people are not the same people, you know? The people who listen to Howard Stern, they're like, you know, what like I don't know, what kind of person listens to Howard Stern? Who tunes into a radio to a podcast, hears someone say something like offensive? Who wants to hear that? Somebody does it. There's a market for it, you know. Like there's people buying it, but like, what type of person is that? Probably not the type of person who's trying to like enhance their musical knowledge a whole lot. You know, that's probably a different person. But he's a wiener. I don't like him. He's taken something that I love and killed it. Well, it's been a slow process of it burning. I was there whenever he was hired. So like I said, Alex died like 2.5, 3 years ago, something like that. So Matt's only been there for like 2 years or whatever, and I was actually on the board that hired him, and he was dead ass. He was the best candidate out of the 3 applicants that we have, and it was disgusting that the university was okay with us only having 3 applicants. We only interviewed 3 people for this. It's like, could you imagine like I don't know what the equivalent would be. A lot of people disrespect radio for some reason, but like, could you imagine, like, the person who runs the newspaper? So I was the music director. I was, like, the editor-in-chief of, like, the radio station, you know? Like, the person who's in charge of the campus newspaper. You only have 3 applicants, and you think that's enough? You think that's a big enough, like, talent pool to sample from? Like, no, you need to have, like, you know, like, a good 10 people. You need to have people with, like, doctorates or whatever, like, coming in here. Like, some people who are, like, mad qualified to... Because it's a cushy-ass job. You just sit around and dick around on a radio station all the time. Like... I don't know what the hell this man does on university budget, but like, actually, I do know what he does on university budget. He dicks around on Facebook, and we have this like, we had somebody come in the other day and like go onto a computer that he was just using, and then just like looked at the internet browser history, and it was him going to like different female people that he knew on Facebook, looking at like a few pictures, and then like looking at a different female person they knew on Facebook, looking at a few pictures. Not like porn or anything bad, just like Facebook profile pictures, just on university time, like while he's getting paid to be at work, like $40,000 a year, he's getting paid. That's like, that equates to about like $25 an hour. Like if you're working 40 hours a week and you get $25 an hour, it's about $40,000 a year. So he's getting like $25 an hour to sit and browse people's Facebook pages. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I paying for that? Why do I'm paying for you to do that? Like there's like university fees that go towards student activities, and I'm paying you to do that. And I'm also paying you to be an ass to me in like a weird passive aggressive way. He's a wiener. Man, well, I mean, like, emotional satisfaction, to be, liked by all of my peers or whatever, the normal things that everyone wants. I guess the only thing that I could say that I want that's, like, maybe any different than what the average person wants is I really want to own a 1980s F-150 in some kind of shade of yellow. It's gotta have those like step up bars on the side. You know what I'm talking about? Like those like hangs off a little bit on the thing, so you get a little step into your truck. You know, we're gonna get a truck that has a step on it, that has like a pretty good sound system in it. I want to get a handgun, really nice handgun. I want to carry it around all the time, and a dog. You know, that'd be nice. And Texas seems like a good place to accomplish all three of those things. Yeah, other than that, I just want to keep going and doing all the things that I'm already doing. I'm pretty happy with my life and everything that I do, and all I really want is a reasonable house where I don't get too many noise complaints despite being really loud all the time. All the speakers that are in this entire house, they're all mine. Like they're all the speakers and all the audio equipment, and you can hear it through the floor right now. And this is like very barely on. Like if that thing was like on, it would have a noise complaint in about like 10 minutes. It's absurd how, like, you saw those speakers down there, they're huge. I really am into that, and I think that I'm probably going to end up buying more and bigger and better, and like I really like the idea of like really big speakers. Like not necessarily like better. I think that sound quality is really arbitrary, and I think that a lot of music sounds better on big speakers than it does on little high quality speakers. You know, like there's a big trend in music technology now to make like those little like sound bars and like little pill things and all that. And you can say that like it sounds just as good as this like this whole speaker setup that I have in here, but the kind of sound that you get out of like something that's physically big, I feel like sounds better. You know, I really enjoy big speakers. So big speakers, a truck, a dog, probably like a girlfriend or I don't know, something like that, and a house that I can be really loud in, and keep doing the same thing that I'm doing. Weed should be legal too. I want that. So that's another thing. That's about it though. That's all I really want. I want to be